there a correlation between swordfish and hydrogen fuel cells? Believe it or not, there is. And with the use of hydrogen fuel cells, the population of swordfish can be saved from global warming.
To begin, how can hydrogen be a fuel source? Hydrogen is being explored as an alternative fuel to gasoline in the form of a fuel cell. And what is that, you may ask? Well, this is a fuel cell. And what it does is it uses hydrogen and oxygen atoms in order to form a battery that has the ability to power cars and even homes. And this is how that works.
A fuel cell works similarly to a battery. It gains its energy from the flow of electrons from the negative end, the anode, to the positive cathode. First, a hydrogen molecule is sent into the fuel cell from a pressurized tank. A catalyst at the end of the intake valve causes a chemical reaction that splits the hydrogen into H+ ions and negatively charged electrons. After the molecules are split, pressure forces the ions into a region with an anode, which is negatively charged. The negatively charged electrons are attracted to the cathode on the other end of the cell and repelled by the anode. However, they are prevented from flowing directly between the two due to a polymer separator, which doesn't allow electrons to pass through. The hydrogen ions are able to pass right through to the separator to the other side, pushed across by pressure. Since the electrons cannot travel through the separator, they are forced down another path to get to the cathode. This path is where the electricity is generated. As the electrons flow down this wire, they are used to power something, often a motor. The electrons join up with the H+ ions at the end of the fuel cell near the cathode. At this point, oxygen from the air is pumped into the cell and reacts with hydrogen and electrons to form the water molecule, which flows out of the fuel cell as a waste product.
Now, in order to get this hydrogen, specifically H2, there are three major methods. First, there is a process called steam hydrocarbon reforming. What occurs in this method is natural gas is treated with high temperature steam, causing a chemical breakdown and the release of hydrogen. Another process in order to get hydrogen is a process called the gasification of sulfur coal. Low sulfur coal is placed in a very high temperature furnace where hydrogen is extracted. Now, these are the two major methods for getting hydrogen. However, there is another process called electrolysis. In this method, electricity is used in order to chemically decompose water into hydrogen and oxygen. However, this method is not as widely used. The process of electrolysis is actually a con to hydrogen fuel cells along with the other methods. It is very expensive to pull hydrogen from water, and all the processes of getting hydrogen have some flaws. For example, experts say that hydrogen that escapes during extraction could erode the ozone layer. Very ironic. This is a very negative occurrence that could contribute to global warming, which of course we are trying to limit. Also, another threat is the storage of hydrogen. It has a very low energy density and needs to be stored and transported under high pressure, which is not ideal. Also, hydrogen is clear, has no scent, and flammable. So if there was to be a leak, a fire could occur rather easily. Okay, enough with those cons. How is this technology better than gasoline? Well, hydrogen fuel cells don't produce any air pollutants or greenhouse gases, so they are very environmentally friendly. In fact, a fuel cell electric vehicle running on hydrogen emits water vapor and warm air as exhaust, and it's considered a zero-emission vehicle. Another positive is that there are trillions of kilograms of hydrogen in the atmosphere, so there is little chance that its supply will run out. This hydrogen from the atmosphere is also a renewable source, unlike gasoline. Hydrogen fuel cells are also very efficient in comparison to gasoline. If the fuel cell is powered with pure hydrogen, it has the potential to be up to 80% efficient, which is a large comparison to gasoline, which is only about 20% efficient. Also, in terms of energy efficiency, hydrogen beats gasoline in the fact that the energy in 2.2 pounds of hydrogen gas in a fuel cell contains about the same energy in 1 gallon of gasoline, which is 6.2 pounds. Well, with all these positives, why don't you have a hydrogen fuel cell power car? Well, that's because of the several cons that are associated with it. Fuel cell vehicles, also known as FCVs, are expensive and not yet available to the general public. The major problem with fuel cell vehicles is that they need to be refueled more often than traditional gasoline-powered cars, due to the fact that fuel cells are harder to store than gasoline. If these problems can be overcome, then hydrogen cell-powered cars could be the way of the future. This idea that hydrogen could be the way of the future is believed by a partnership in Sacramento, California. This building here is a California Fuel Cell Partnership building, and here, hydrogen fuel cell technologies are being explored. There are fuel cell vehicles and hydrogen refuel stations, so the technologies are present. Also, the motto of California's fuel cell partnership is driving for the future, so they believe that hydrogen will become the common energy source in cars over time. What does this have to do with biology? Well, the environmental factor of global warming is affecting the swordfish negatively. But to begin, what are swordfish? Swordfish are predatory fish characterized by their long, sword-like bills. They live in tropical to cool waters all around the world, most frequently between the tropics of Capricorn and Cancer. The average temperature of their habitat is 64 to 71 degrees Fahrenheit, and they usually live at around 550 meters below the sea surface. The diet of the swordfish is fairly thin. They are carnivores and dine on squid, octopus, fish, and crustaceans. They often kill their prey by waving their sharp bill into a school of fish, killing some and then eating their remains. Swordfish hatch from eggs when they reach about 0.15 inches long. When the swordfish body length approaches half an inch long, their long bill begins to develop. The average lifespan of the swordfish is about 9 years long, usually with a length of about 6 feet and a weight of 50 to 200 pounds. The record for the largest swordfish is 12 feet, 1,200 pounds.
Swordfish have several specialized body parts that are specific to them or other similar fish. For example, they have a swim bladder, which is a large air-filled organ in the center of their bodies which helps them control their own buoyancy and dive and rise faster in the water. They also have heat emitters behind their eyes to see well in cold waters and use sensors on their skin to detect upcoming water current changes and adjust accordingly to reduce drag. On the outside of the body, the most obvious feature is the long 4-foot bill on their upper jaw that can be used for hunting. They also have several fins to move around, and swordfish scales follow a distinct color pattern. In addition, all swordfish gills are located behind their eyes with a gill cover for protection. This is a sample food web that shows the common interactions in a swordfish environment. At the bottom there are 3 producers: algae, kelp, and plankton. They are eaten by the primary consumers, which are small fish, shrimp, and crabs. These are eaten by secondary consumers, which are birds, swordfish, and the squid. These are eaten in turn by humans, sharks, orcas, and sperm whales.
Notice how, not only in this food web, but all of them, that the organisms toward the top rely on other organisms for their energy. So with the collapse of the species, lots of organisms would suffer. For example, if fish and squid were to die off in this food web, the swordfish would wind up dying off too. They would have to adapt and eat other things, or they would definitely suffer and die out. Then the organisms that rely on them, such as a shark, would suffer too. So everything in the food web is connected.
Climate change in general greatly affects the migration patterns of swordfish and other marine creatures as they move northward to cooler waters. Ocean acidification, however, is one particular major crisis that accompanies increasing pollution. In the short term, it is unlikely that the current ocean acidification would pose any major threats to the swordfish population. They are protected by their skin and scales from the lower pH waters and will largely remain unchanged in behavior for the time being. However, as time goes on, the effects of ocean acidification will begin to devastate the swordfish. Studies have suggested that rapidly more acidic ocean waters may alter the migration patterns of the fish. In addition, while the swordfish may be protected from immediate change, producers and other small creatures such as plankton, crabs, and sea butterflies will be devastated by the acid. As their populations fall, the animals that eat them will begin to run out of food. Soon the entire food chain will collapse, and swordfish at the top will be in extreme danger without viable sources of energy.
There was a recent scare in Brazil dealing with swordfish. The headline of this article reads, "Thousands of dead swordfish covered Paradise Lopes Mendes Beach, Brazil." At first, this was a shock to the people of Brazil, as thousands of dead swordfish were washed up on their beaches. They attributed the death to pollution, as it seemed like a plausible cause. However, it was later found that the deaths were due to fishermen. Though this tragedy was not due to pollution, it serves as an example of what could happen if global warming and ocean acidification continue to occur. This is why the hydrogen fuel cells are so crucial and need to be implemented. Gasoline and other fuels are not environmentally safe, and they have the power to kill thousands of organisms. They could end food chains. So, hydrogen fuel cells are very environmentally safe and could not only save swordfish, but lots of aquatic life from ocean acidification. In conclusion, hydrogen as an alternative fuel is very plausible. Though it does have some challenges, such as the dangers associated with extracting hydrogen, its positives are also very prevalent. Hydrogen fuel cells are very environmentally friendly if created correctly, and they could become the fuel of the future, like the California Fuel Cell Partnership believes. Also, along with being environmentally friendly, the hydrogen has the potential to save thousands of organisms. One example is the swordfish, a predatory fish that could be negatively affected by ocean acidification. However, with the implementation of hydrogen, global warming and ocean acidification could be reduced, saving the population of the swordfish.